Hi there, I'm Chris. I'm a member of Camden Library's staff, and this is another of our ongoing series of book reviews. Um, Now, today my choice is last year's winner of the Baillie Gifford Prize for Non-Fiction, which sounds quite heavy, but actually it's a bit of an unexpected choice, really, and it'll either make your heart sing or it'll make you groan, because what it is, and this is another brick-sized book, it's One, Two, Three, Four, The Beatles in Time by Craig Brown. Well, I know, okay, the Beatles. There have been about 58,000 books about the Beatles over the years, and some people have read all of them. But do we need another one? Yeah, well, I think we do, actually, because this is very different from conventional Beatle books. It's not actually a conventional biography. And it's not a study of the group's musical evolution either. In fact, the music is only fleetingly acknowledged during the text. Craig Brown's technique is basically a series of snapshots of individuals and incidents and contemporary accounts. So to some extent it's the well-known story but seen through a different angle, and to another extent it's the author's opinions, and it's also some weird and wonderful facts, some of which appear to have actually escaped biographers in the past. Overall, the book functions as a social history. It's not just the Beatles, but it's the UK's history, and also to some extent the history of the USA as well, in the years that the Beatles were an active band, so say 1962 through to 1970. And there is a review I read of this while I was preparing for this, which actually says you don't have to like the Beatles to enjoy this book. So I have to take that person's word for it. But I think there's a lot in it that will appeal to people who are not necessarily Beatle maniacs or Beatle nuts. Okay, so Craig Brown, if you don't know him, he's a journalist, and he's probably best known for the spoof diaries that he writes in Private Eye every fortnight, generally by supposedly by well-known celebrities or people in the public eye, and they are sometimes extremely realistic, and they have been mistaken for the real thing before now. Craig Brown was born in 1957, so he actually grew up alongside Beatlemania, and I think that does qualify him to comment on the period. The whole tone of the book is irreverent, but it is also mostly affectionate as well. The Beatles are portrayed as both saints and sinners, but they're also portrayed with tolerance and good humour, and I have to say, an eye for satire. The tone of the book does change a little bit as we move deeper into the 1960s, and hippie philosophies, alternative philosophies, begin to take over. So, for example, you get the impression that Craig Brown is actually a huge admirer of John Lennon, but he also found his political activities a little wearing, or maybe even ridiculous. And sadly, well, I think sadly anyway, he doesn't have a kind word for Yoko Ono at all. Much of the book's appeal comes from its unusual structure. Effectively, it's 150 short chapters, and these chapters are of varying length. Some of them are less than a page, some of them are maybe 10 pages or so. They use a variety of narrative styles. There are no chapter headings and there's no index, so effectively you're in the middle of a sort of giant Beatle pick and mix. And I thought, rather than actually comment on many of those chapters, I'll just give you a sort of sample list of what some of them are about, so that you can get the tone of the book, basically. So, what was the public's reaction to the Beatles' hair? Mega crisis. How the Beatles ruined Rolf Harris's 1963 Christmas show. Oh, Rolfie. Was John Lennon's Aunt Mimi a snob? Letters from crazed American fans. What Helen Shapiro thought about the Beatles. She liked them. What Cliff Richard thought about the Beatles. Well, 60 years on, he still begrudges their success over him. What's Noel Coward and Malcolm Muggeridge and Anthony Burgess and J.R.R. Tolkien thought about the Beatles? Not fans. And on the subject of J.R.R. Tolkien, plans for the Beatles' Lord of the Rings film, which would have starred Paul as Frodo and John as Gollum. My brain is pinging all over the place at the moment. Jeffrey Archer pretends to be the Beatles' manager. Cassius Clay meets the Beatles in a boxing ring. George takes LSD for the first time and is pursued by menacing American hippies. Fans who collect Beatle DNA. Why Joe Orton couldn't write a Beatle film script. John Lennon had a lengthy obsession with Brigitte Bardot. There's a whole chapter about that. One that I think is actually quite relevant and quite on topic, and I think Beatle fans might recognise this one. Why did the Beatles lose their sense of humour? A few of the chapters consist of the author's slightly surreal experiences when he visits Beatle homes in Liverpool, owned by the National Trust, as part of a Beatle tour, and is shown things like, this is the drain pipe that Paul used to slide down when he was getting out of the house surreptitiously. Same drain pipe as in 1953? No, of course not, it's a replica. And he goes on a tour of Beatle clubs in Hamburg, where the Fab Four played in 1961, and he meets a tour guide who actually once met John Lennon. He met John Lennon. What did he say? I can't remember. So, one of Craig Brown's other books is a strange fantasy book about Princess Margaret, in which he sort of invents various scenarios. He only does that once in this book. Basically, he riffs on the fantasy that the Beatles were beaten to worldwide fame by, wait for it, Gerry and the Pacemakers, and they faded into obscurity soon after. And the only Beatle who came out of that experience well was Ringo, who opened a chain of hairdressing salons. And that's the way that history goes. So, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 by the Beatles. No, sorry, it's not by the Beatles at all, it's by Craig Brown. But it's bits of it are by the Beatles, perhaps. And, in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Thank you very much. More reviews to come soon.